Welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. A lot more than half of the entire population of the entire state of Arizona lives in Maricopa County. The cities of Mesa, Tempe, Scottsdale, and largest of all, Phoenix, are all within the county's borders. If you want to win statewide in Arizona, you have to win Maricopa County. Unfortunately, as of tonight, we still don't know who has won Maricopa County, either in the U.S. Senate race there or in the governor's race in Arizona, because officials are not even close to finishing the count. 48 hours after the voting stopped, there are still 633,000 ballots still uncounted in Arizona. More than 400,000 of those are in Maricopa County. You're seeing it on your screen right now. When will we know the results? Last night, election officials claimed they'd have a new tally for us by 8 p.m. Eastern, the beginning of our show. But the deadline came and went. By the end of the night, they had finished counting fewer than 70,000 more votes. Then they said they'd have final totals by Friday, tomorrow. But no. Today, the county officials said they don't expect to announce the results of the elections until next week at the earliest.
When do you anticipate the votes will be counted in total, those 400,000 plus votes?
Well, we will be going into next week. There's some onesie-twosies, again, pursuant to Arizona law, but I think that we'll see the lion's share here wrap up by early next week.
Okay. Early next week, can you give me a day? Are we talking Monday? Or we?
Maybe, as long as you won't hold me to it.
Can you tell us, Mr. Official, Mr. Election Official, when we might learn who won the election? Maybe, as long as you don't hold me to it. That was the chairman of the Maricopa County Supervisors. Notice what you did not hear in that exchange. You did not hear an apology. The guy in charge of election results never said sorry for not providing those results. It's hard to understand this. It's not a resource problem, certainly. The budget of Maricopa County is about $4.5 billion a year. For perspective, the entire Hoover Dam cost $890 million to build, and yes, that is in adjusted dollars. So for the price of 5 Hoover Dams, Maricopa County can't even count the ballots in a single statewide election in a country that claims to care about democracy. They can't even manage to let people vote on Election Day. On Election Day, according to the county, 70 of 223 polling places suffered major problems with voting machines the county paid millions for just recently. And their failure disenfranchised mostly Republican voters who wanted to cast their ballots in person. One poll worker reported that 25% of ballots were being rejected. Now, you would call that third world, but actually it's beneath third world. Most third world countries have serious elections. They require voter ID. They don't wait days for election results in Ghana. In Venezuela, whatever you think of it, they tally their ballots within hours. But suddenly we can't manage to do that? Clark County, Nevada, the home of Las Vegas, says there are still tens of thousands of ballots left to count. Therefore, we're not going to know what happened in the election until Monday, we hope. We're going to talk to Adam Laxalt about that in a minute. He's running for Senate there. Officials in Clark County are clearly overwhelmed. They're too busy to finish the one job they are paid to do. And yet, strangely, they still have time to attack Donald Trump on social media, which they've been doing all day. First things first. But it's not just Nevada and Arizona. Key House races all along the west coast of the country, in California, Oregon, and Washington State, are still unsettled tonight. They're saying they haven't counted the votes. Really? What is this? Is this fraud? We're not sure. And on some level, it doesn't matter what it is. What we know is that the mechanics of our elections are not working, almost exclusively in states and cities run by Democrats. Are they cheating? Are they disorganized? Again, not relevant. The system is obviously out of control. It's flaky. And systems like that cannot be, by definition, reliable. Would you let a Maricopa County elections official fly your aircraft? Probably not. That's a disaster. Democracy is a faith-based system. You have to believe in it in order for it to work. But who could believe in this? So our news media, in case you haven't noticed, has spent the last several years, quote, defending democracy, insert trademark here. So you'd think that democracy defenders would care about the collapse of democracy, but just the opposite. They're telling you it's all completely normal. It's always been this way. If you disagree, you'll be censored on social media, as we found out today. Twitter just slapped a warning label on videos from this show because we reported verifiable facts from election officials about election screw-ups. So it's taking weeks to count the ballots in your democracy, but you're not allowed to notice it. What is this about? Again, we're not sure. And at this stage, there's really no way to know what it's about. So we're not making allegations. But we thought we'd ask, because it'd be interesting to ask, the most obvious question of all and see if we could find the answer. And the question is, who's benefiting from this? And how do you know? Well, you look backwards. So in cases where there was chaos and delays in vote counting over the past several election cycles, what percentage of the ultimate winners turned out to be Democrats? Now, in a fair system, you would think the proportion would land somewhere around 50%, a coin toss. But we checked. Oh, and that's not the case. In 13 recent races we looked at where election delays were well publicized, 10 of them ultimately went to the Democrat. 10 out of 13, 77%. That's not a coin toss. That's a very high average. Take, for example, the 2018 election in Orange County, California. Republican congressional candidates in 3 of the 4 Republican-held districts in Orange County had huge leads on Election Day. But in the weeks following the election, those leads disappeared. They evaporated. In the end, Democrats flipped each of those seats in Orange County, which not that long ago was a very conservative area, and in some places still is. So how did that happen? Well, the San Francisco Chronicle reported that 250,000 vote-by-mail drop-off ballots came in. Many of those ballots were brought into polling stations by paid ballot harvesters. The Orange County Register put it this way, quote, "People were carrying in stacks of 100 and 200 of them. We had multiple people calling to ask if these people were allowed to do this." But of course they were allowed. That was the point. These sudden reversals didn't just happen in Orange County, California. In the state's 21st congressional district, the Associated Press declared Republican David Vallado the winner because of his lead on election night. And it takes a lot. The AP does not call races for Republicans unless they're pretty sure. But in this case, they had to retract the call nearly 3 weeks later after his opponent took the lead, the Democrat, because new ballots continued to be counted. That same year, again in Nevada, one local paper documented the lengthy problems in vote counting on election night, and of course the inevitable result, which you can guess by this point. And we're quoting, "After a long evening of tortuous delay following a historic midterm election turnout, the results were finally in, and the blue wave promised by Nevada Democrats became a definitive reality." It was the same story that year in places like Detroit and again, Arizona. It took days for all the votes to be counted in the state of Arizona, and ultimately, you will not be shocked to learn, Republican Martha McSally narrowly lost her race for the Senate. So here you have lengthy delays in vote counting followed by good news for Democrats. It's happened all over the country. In 2020, it took officials 6 weeks to declare a winner in the Democratic Party's congressional primary for 2 districts in the state of New York. And in the end, because these were primaries, it was an intra-Democratic Party contest, the Democratic Party establishment, the most powerful part of the Democratic Party, won. Longtime Congresswoman Carol Maloney fended off an insurgent progressive successfully after long delays, and then Richie Torres defeated his challenger, who was a conservative Democrat. Weird how that works. Several years earlier, the same thing happened to Republicans in Sacramento. On election night in 2014 in the suburbs of the city, it looked like a Republican challenger called Doug Ose was about to unseat an incumbent Democratic congressman, Ami Bera. The Republican was up more than 3,000 votes. But then, 2 weeks later, more votes came in, and guess what? The Democrat was declared the winner by 700 votes. And he's been in Congress ever since. In all the recent cases that we looked at, only the state of Florida had a long voting count delay that led to a Republican winning, and it was in just one county. That was in the 2018 Florida gubernatorial election, when incompetent Democrats in Broward County broke the law and failed to report vote totals 4 days. Ultimately, as you know, Ron DeSantis won. On Tuesday, thanks to efforts to improve vote counting in the state of Florida, Florida tabulated results much more quickly. So Florida is far bigger than Arizona or Nevada, but by contrast had its election results, as you know, in a single day. And by the way, Florida enforces voter ID law strictly. So it's pretty hard to argue about who actually won. So no matter what you think of Ron DeSantis or his policies, you may hate him and them, you still, if you're an honest person, must acknowledge that is a win for democracy. The system worked. The votes were counted. They were reported promptly. Democracy won in Florida, even if the outcome is not to your preference. But no one in the media seemed impressed by this. Here, in fact, is a CNN contributor arguing that by trying to prevent voter fraud, Ron DeSantis actually, quote, gamed the system.
Yesterday, he won by 20 percentage points. Why? Because he gamed the system. Because he turned Florida into an unlevel playing field. They changed election laws, making it harder to vote by mail. They paraded a bunch of people, black people, that they arrested for voting fraud and paraded them in front of national media. He created an election police. He also was very good in responding to hurricanes and other tragedies.
So by fighting election fraud, Ron DeSantis, quote, gamed the system. Well, he certainly did. He gamed their system. And we ought to demand that every state games their system. We ought to demand that every election in America looks like Florida's election. Not in its outcome, but in the way it's conducted. Only registered voters can vote. They must vote in their own names. They can only vote once, and you get to know the results. You, the citizen who own and run this country, within hours. Anything less than that is an actual attack on democracy. Adam Laxalt is living through this right now. He's running for Senate from the state of Nevada. As we told you earlier, he joins us from there now. Adam Laxalt, thank you so much for coming on. What is the state of your race tonight?
Well, we feel really, really strongly about where this race is heading. We've been in the lead, obviously, since election night. That lead has shrunk over the last few days, but she does not have the amount of votes left to be able to catch us. She'd have to win by over 63%. And it's important to note, since most of the national media is not covering this, the Las Vegas mail ballots that are being reported include Election Day drop-off mail. That mail is absolutely not going to break like, traditional mail through the USPS. Those are Election Day voters. And just to give you an example, in Washoe County, we had more Republicans drop off Election Day ballots than Democrats. And so, again, as we put out the math for the world, she has to win by over 63% of all of this. And we think that these Election Day ballots, could break even. We could stand to lose them by 15, 20 points, and we would still hold. And so we feel like we're in a great, great position, and just super proud of my team, and a lot of hard work, incredibly tough race. But we're going to win this thing, hopefully, and be an important race for the country and my great state.
Well, we certainly agree with all of that. But we should know by now. It's been 2 days, and Clark County, Nevada, where most of our viewers have been, since it's one of the country's biggest tourist destinations, is one of the most technologically advanced places in the world. You built a replica of the Eiffel Tower in your county. Everything is automated in Clark County, Nevada. So I'm honestly confused as to why they can't give us the results of an election within a few hours.
I absolutely believe we need to get rid of ballot harvesting and drop boxes and universal mail-out balloting. There's no reason. First, we don't even have voter ID. We need voter ID. We need Election Day counting, as everyone keeps pointing out. If Florida can do it, 21 million people, with 3 million people in Nevada, we should know the results of the election. And here's what people's missing is the human toll. Never mind like the democracy piece, which is obviously the most important. You have campaigns and staffs that are now just continuing for 20 hours. When is the campaign over? When do you get to tell your supporters, thank you for everything you did, we've won? When do you get your family to actually breathe that it's over? This system is very, very flawed. And by the way, everyone knows it. I think Republicans and Democrats think this is just an astonishing process. And I don't think in Clark County we did so much to make sure this was a secure election. We have lawyers everywhere. We had election observers. We feel confident that the votes, the registrar announced today, there are just over 50,000 more mail votes, and total 70,000 tops. So we know the universe, and we feel comfortable with the universe. But nonetheless, we need to change the system.
Yeah. It's like a Roman siege. They're trying to wait you out. But we'll be following you. Adam Laxalt, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Got a Fox News alert for you. Hurricane Nicole, another hurricane, made another landfall in the eastern part of Florida today. It caused at least 2 deaths, sadly. Hundreds of thousands of Floridians lost power. There are some pretty amazing videos of what the storm did. Will Nunley is a multimedia journalist with Fox Weather. He joins us to walk through what we're seeing tonight. Will, what is this? Good to see you, by the way.
Yeah, Tucker, I'll tell you what, weather-wise, Florida just can't seem to catch a break this year. And this time, it was a powerful Category 1 Hurricane Nicole, another historic storm. I want to start you before dawn. Daytona Beach, as this thing was really starting to churn offshore, it brought plenty of sea foam all over the docks there and the boardwalks and the beach. Really an eerie sight of things to come. And as we started to get some daylight, we saw the beach erosion. We had some drone video coming in that was showing incredible sights of buildings collapsing into the water. We have numerous buildings, about 12 in all, if not more, that are being deemed unsafe at this hour. We're talking big condo buildings here that have to be inspected to make sure that they are still sound structurally. And while all of this was happening, these incredible impacts in Daytona, we had flooding here in the Carolinas. In Charleston, where I am today, police had to race around, putting up barricades to keep people from driving through feet of floodwater. Some people ignoring those barricades, trying to challenge it anyway, quickly learning that they were no match for that floodwater. Meanwhile, the story of Nicole is not over. Tucker, we're going to continue to track the movements around the clock for you right now over on Fox Weather. Tucker.
Will Nunley, Fox Weather. Thanks for joining us tonight. So there's nothing scarier to the people currently running our country than freedom of speech. That would mean that their opponents get to talk and explain what they're doing wrong. They can't have that or they'll lose power. So a free and open Twitter is the greatest possible threat to the Democratic Party. Joe Biden knows that, so he set out to destroy his former ally, Elon Musk, in a pretty obvious way, too. We've got that for you next. Plus, one of the bright spots in the midterm elections is we can finally say goodbye to Beto O'Rourke and amateur pornographer Stacey Abrams. We're going to do that straight ahead. Well, as we told you a moment ago, a lot of the results from Tuesday's elections are still not clear because it's really hard to count ballots. It's just unbelievably complicated to add. But we do know a couple of things for certain, and we're going to celebrate them. Beto O'Rourke and Stacey Abrams have lost once again, running sum total between the two of them statewide several hundred times. Recently, they wasted over $100 million of Democratic voter money. So the question is, where did that money go? Well, some of it went to TikTok videos like these.
For a yellow bone, long hair star, thick in the hips, come get in my car. I'm looking for a yellow bone, long hair star, thick in the hips, come get in my car.
Oh man, the young people are going to go wild for that. Oh, but in the end they didn't. Not a lot of people voted for Stacey Abrams, but on Star Trek, Stacey Abrams remains very popular. In fact, she was elected. The one office she legitimately holds is on Star Trek, where she is the president of United Earth.
We greet the president of United Earth.
Welcome. I am so pleased that you've come. We are eager to begin diplomatic discussions.
Nothing to discuss. United Earth is ready right now to rejoin the Federation.
So great. For years, the entire media, entertainment, industrial complex has been commanding us through loudspeakers as one. You must love Stacey Abrams. No. Say the voters. Democracy lives. Back on real Earth, Stacey Abrams' political career is done. And as we told you, so is Beto O'Rourke. So we want to say a final farewell to both of them. We thought, what can we possibly say about them that matches this moment? And then we tuned to MSNBC and realized they'd already done it. Here is their tribute to Stacey Abrams, for real.
And so sometimes you do not get to reap the immediate benefits for yourself of the work that you do. And I think that that is a story that black women all across this country know all too well. But people better stand up and give Stacey Abrams her flowers.
That's right.
That's right.
By the way, Moses.
Thank you.
Moses, he led the Jews to the promised land, but he didn't get there himself.
He didn't get there himself, but God took care of Moses.
Yes,
Keep reading the Bible. God said, I will bury Moses. Y'all leave Moses alone and let Joshua keep going. And Stacey will get her due. God will reward Stacey.
And the shaved head lady nods her shaved head. Yeah, that's right. You better give her your due, and that's a threat, by the way. Because you know what? She's Moses. She's Moses. Well, pardon us. There she is, leading you into the promised land. On Star Trek, anyway. Goodbye, Stacey Abrams. So the single greatest threat to the political and social hegemony that the left has in the United States, of course, is free speech. If you can say what you really think, they can't hold power. Words are the biggest threat to them. Not guns, words. So of course they can't let Elon Musk take over Twitter, not because he's a right-winger, he's not, but because he wants to let you speak. You have no power but your voice, and he wants to give it back to you. They can't allow that. So they're doing everything they can to destroy Elon Musk as a person before he can give you free speech. Hard to believe this is happening, but it did. Today, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, not supposed to be political, now just a tool of the Biden administration, threatened to investigate Musk. Joe Biden, for his part, just suggests that Elon Musk might be a threat to national security.
Mr. President, do you think Elon Musk is a threat to U.S. national security, and should the U.S. and with the tools you have investigate his joint acquisition of Twitter with foreign governments, which include the Saudis?
I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at.
You'll notice that in that brief moment of lucid thought, he giggled because he's thinking to himself, is Elon Musk a threat because of his relationship with foreign countries? Wait, I pressured the Ukrainian government to do business with my son and helped him with his business deals with China. And now we're going after Elon Musk. Okay. What's interesting is, even as they're threatening to arrest Elon Musk, or whatever that just was, at the same time, Biden's Justice Department seems not very interested in a man called Sam Bankman-Fried. Why is that? Well, maybe because Bankman-Fried was the Democratic Party's second biggest donor this cycle. Just over 30 thereabouts, but he came in right behind George Soros for the amount of money that he gave to Democrats, and he's friends with all of them. We're going to have a much longer piece on this soon because it's fascinating. But his crypto company just blew up, destroyed a lot of people's net worth. Now, apparently, as his company was tanking, Bankman-Fried continued to send millions of dollars to the Democratic Party. So the question is that fraud? We don't know. But someone should be asking that question? No. No one seems to be. No warrant has been issued. Why? Well, because he's a political ally. He's not Elon Musk. Where is he? Well, we can't interview him because he's not in the country. Apparently he's in the Bahamas. A source told CoinDesk, quote, that the whole operation, the company that just blew up, was run by a gang of kids in the Bahamas in a luxury penthouse. But don't ask questions. Vivek Ramaswamy is a man who's been around a lot of high finance. He's an entrepreneur and a really interesting person, sophisticated in the ways of this stuff. He joins us tonight. Vivek, thanks so much for coming on. So they're basically threatening Elon Musk from the podium in the White House because he dares to bring back free speech, but ignoring this Democratic donor?
So it's funny, it's this arranged marriage between big government and big business in this country, Tucker. Yes. You know it well. Where actually Elon was a darling, by the way, when he was pushing the climate religion. He only fell out of favor when he started pushing free speech. Now take this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, who actually goes by SBF in the crypto world, so let's call him SBF. The interesting thing here is he actually bought protection. He played the old Goldman Sachs pre-2008 game. You'll remember this. Goldman Sachs paid for a lot of protection from the government to pay out. It's like an insurance policy when it matters most. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, that's why Goldman Sachs got bailed out while Lehman Brothers didn't. Well, SBF appears to be playing a really similar game. He's a top donor to the Democratic Party, even as his exchange was going bust. Yet there's one small nuance to this, Tucker. I think they might actually go after him and punish him anyway. And here's the funny part, not a lot of people know. He actually had pledged up to $1 billion in donations this cycle and next. So there were actually a lot of Democrats upset with him that he only gave 30 to 40 million. So if they do go after him, it's because he didn't buy the gold-plated insurance policy. He just stopped at the cheap version of the insurance policy instead. And so if he is indicted, or if he does get in trouble, that'll be one of the lessons of the story for future crony capitalists is pay up for full freight or else you're going to get in trouble.
Amazing. Just in 10 seconds, since you're old enough to remember, an oligarch pledging to throw $1 billion into a Democratic election. Democrats used to complain about big money, right? Didn't they?
That's exactly right. What happened to the Citizens United, corporations are not people old left, the party that used to be skeptical of the expansion of corporate power, that said corporations shouldn't act like people, now are the ones who want those corporations and corporatocratic autocrats to act more like people. That's a bit of an irony. It's an about-face over the last 10 years. But what they realized is, you know what? It's not an arranged marriage where we have to love our partner. It's more just like mutual prostitution, and it works as long as each side gets something out of the trade. Birth the illegitimate child of the woke industrial complex. That's where you get to where we are.
Oh, Vivek, they must really hate you because you can explain it so very well. And I appreciate you're doing it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're continuing to monitor the election results in Arizona, the election from 2 days ago. We're supposed to get a new tally tonight. Of course, we'll bring it to you as soon as we do. Plus, the thug in the muscle tee who runs Ukraine, the democracy guy, he's claiming that the U.S. Congress, in other words, you, in the middle of a recession, owe him an indefinite supply of cash forever. Do you? Do you own that? Details next. This is a Fox News alert. Arizona election officials continue to claim update vote totals any minute. They're obviously not embarrassed by how long this is taking tonight. They should be ashamed. Tonight, the supervisor of Maricopa County's Board of Supervisors calls it all completely normal.
We've already had over 1.1 million votes counted and recorded here in Maricopa County in the 2022 general election. We have about 400 to 410,000 more to be counted. So, why is it taking the amount of time it's taking? A lot of people are talking about this. Well, first of all, it's very standard. This is how things work in Arizona.
Where's the groveling? Where's the I'm sorry? I can't believe I screwed up your democracy, which we all pretend to care so much about. We can't even count the votes on time, despite the fact our county has a $4.5 billion annual budget, but we can't count votes? Why don't you apologize? Let's start there. They never will, ever. But if we get a bunch of new voting data tonight, we'll bring it to you immediately. But we are, in the absence of that, wondering what exactly is the state of the races there, the governor's race, the Senate race. Constantine Curard is a political consultant, a fairly well-known one in the state of Arizona, a Republican. He joins us tonight to assess. Thank you very much for joining us. Where do you think these two races are as of right now?
Yeah, we were watching the Kari Lake race for governor and the Masters race for Senate. They're in different shapes. I mean, Kari Lake is in a very strong position right now. She's down by probably 17,000 votes. We're talking about 650 to 680,000 votes left statewide. So she could win, 51.5, 48.5 and be governor. Blake is behind by about 95 to 100,000 votes. So he needs to win by about 16 points in terms of what's left. But about 380,000 of these ballots are election day drop-offs, and Masters won election day by 68 to 30. I mean, he won by 38 points on election day. So the Republicans are very optimistic about Lake and still pretty optimistic about Masters' chances.
You just heard, and I know you live in the state and work in politics, but to the extent you can tell us, you just heard the guy in charge of ballot counting say this is all totally normal. Doesn't seem normal. Do you think it's normal?
Problem is, it might be normal for here. It's just not supposed to be normal. But these are the same people who said that 2020 was the most perfect election that's ever been run in any county. So the credibility is definitely wrong. It's not supposed to take this long. It's doing a lot of damage just to people's kind of their belief in the system and whether it's working or not. And you get antsy and suspicious, and voters get nervous when it's taking this long to do something that they see all the other states doing much faster.
Yeah. I mean, if this were happening in Guinea-Bissau, I can promise you the U.S. State Department would say this election is questionable. They would. But it's not Guinea-Bissau, it's Arizona. Constantine, I appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you so much.
You bet.
So, assuming there is a Republican-controlled Congress, it looks like there will be, it will be tested, and its first and maybe biggest test is Ukraine funding. So we are in a recession in the United States. It's getting worse. Everyone who follows this expects us to get much worse. In a recession, the core problem is you don't have enough money. But the president of Ukraine is now going on television demanding an infinite supply of money from the United States forever. Watch.
We would really like for the support, especially the amount of support, to stay the same, and to have this joint support from the US society and above all US taxpayers, because at the end of the day, this is not the money of the government, but the money of the people.
It's completely outrageous. We have no idea where the money's going. No idea. If you even suggest that guy might be getting rich from it, you get censored. But a lot of people are getting rich from it. Trust us a lot in this country and their country, but not you, because it's your money. And by the way, Ukraine is not in North, it's in Europe. So why are we paying for this and not the Europeans? The bottom line is, if the Republican Party in Congress continues to allow money to be sent to this thug in a muscle tee, why is it worth voting Republican ever again? They're sending him money in the middle of our recession to fix his border while our border is completely open. How does that work? And how can anyone who claims to care about the United States be in favor of it? The White House is in favor of it. Today they announced that more military aid for Ukraine is on the way. We thought it'd be interesting to know what Candace Owens thinks of this. She's the host of the Candace Owens podcast, and we're happy to have her join us again tonight. Candace, great to see you. This seems like a pretty clear test. If you just got elected as a Republican and you're for America or America First or whatever they're claiming, why would it be hard to make a clear decision on this?
I don't know, because their interests are not aligned with the American people and they don't care what happens to the American people. Let me just say this. It really does pay to have a backbone, Tucker. I think early on when you and I were prodding this narrative about Ukraine, any person that had any questions didn't just immediately throw up a Ukrainian flag in their bio, was instantly called a Russian puppet, right? Asking some very simple questions that everybody should ask. Isn't it suspicious that we were just told that we needed to leave the Afghan war, very sloppily, by the way. We announced that on August 31st, 2021. And then the very next day, on September 1st, America said that we were joining an effort, we were locking arms with the EU to join an effort to help Ukraine join NATO. We left one money laundering operation in which we gave $50 billion of American payers' hard-earned money, and we jumped right into the next one. And how much have we given Ukraine so far? $50 billion. Not enough for this welfare queen. He wants to keep it coming, and that's what he is. President Zelensky is America's welfare queen. And if you want to know where all this money is going, I spent a couple of weeks in Europe. People are saying that Ukrainian officials are buying property in Switzerland. Again, these are questions that we should be investigating, and if Republicans do take back the House and the Senate, we need to seriously start to make sure that we know where every single one of these dollars is going. We have all these amazing IRS officials. Remember, we're expanding the IRS, right? Well, why don't they start looking into the money that we're sending overseas?
That's if a single Ukrainian official has bought property in Switzerland at the same time that we're sending them tens of billions of dollars. Well, how is that not the greatest scandal of the moment? I don't understand. I really don't.
It is 100% true. They've left, they have a bunch of Russian officials have left their properties empty in Switzerland, and Ukrainian officials are showing up in Lamborghinis and purchasing those properties. That is 100% factual, and I'm telling you guys that today. And of course, they're going to ignore it and call it a conspiracy, as they always do. COVID was a conspiracy until we were proven right. BLM was all a conspiracy until we were proven right. And the Ukraine stuff is all a conspiracy. Give it a couple of weeks, and the conspiracy theory will be proven true.
Amazing. Candace Owens, I appreciate your coming on tonight, as always. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So doctors across the country performing gruesome surgeries on the genitals of children and calling it gender-affirming care. Now, one teenager who underwent these surgeries is suing her doctor. She joins us next. Hospitals that abuse children, that mutilate their genitals in the name of trans ideology, are finally, blessedly being shut down. Vanderbilt, for example, closed its youth gender clinic after the Daily Wire exposed them. In Tavistock, in Great Britain, the government closed a gender reassignment clinic after they got sued by thousands of parents. So litigation stops mutilation, and these kinds of closures are about to become more common. Our friend Harmeet Dillon is now representing a young woman called Chloe Cole, a biological woman who was told she could become a man surgically. Now Harmeet and Cole are suing the doctors who did this to her. Harmeet Dillon is the chairwoman of the Republican National Lawyers Association, and she's joined by Chloe Cole. Thank you both so much for coming on. Chloe, first to you, tell us why you're suing.
It's a medical malpractice case. I want to hold the adults who put me in harm's way accountable, because, I mean, what happened to me is horrible, but it's also, it didn't only happen to me. That's the worst part. It's happening to children all over the U.S., all over the West, and it's spreading all over the world. And
yes.
I want to be able to create a precedent for other people who have been in my situation to find justice themselves.
How old were you when you were told by a doctor that you could become a different sex?
I was 12.
You were 12 years old. And did you, I mean, I assume at 12 you believe what a doctor tells you.
And my parents trusted them as well. My parents, they started referring, I was 12 years old when I first expressed to them that I had distress with my gender, with being female, and that I wanted to transition to male. And they were concerned, and they wanted what was best for me, but they weren't really sure what to do with me, so they sought professional help. And from then on, I was basically affirmed in my gender identity without any questioning from any medical professionals, and they pushed transitioning as the way to treat gender dysphoria.
So it's so upsetting, it's hard even to ask you questions, but I'll ask you one more. They committed surgery on you.
Yes. When I was 15 years old, I had a double mastectomy. They removed both of my breasts, and I will never have them back. I will, as an adult, I never will be able to breastfeed whatever children I will have. I don't even know if, because I was put on puberty blockers and testosterone at only 13 years old, I don't know if I'll even be able to conceive a child naturally.
How do you feel about that?
Because I made an adult decision as a child.
It's unbelievable this could happen in America. How old are you now, and how do you feel about what they did to you?
I'm 18 years old now, and quite frankly, I am devastated with what has happened to me.
Yeah.
It's been very hard to cope with the loss of my breasts, and it's affected other areas of my health as well. I'm really not sure about the overall picture of my reproductive health, and the treatments have made me very, very sickly, actually.
Harmeet, just in 10 seconds, how can this be legal?
Well, Tucker, the Center for American Liberty, which is representing Chloe here, believes it is illegal. Our website at libertycenter.org has the letter, very detailed letter that details all of the medical symptoms that Chloe has and the medical malpractice and, frankly, mutilation that was perpetrated by these medical professionals. We intend to stop it, and we want to hear from other people who have had these problems as well. We intend to shut these barbaric and unnatural practices down.
God bless you for doing that. I mean it. Thank you. Harmeet Dillon, Chloe Cole, I'm so sorry. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Next segment tells you a lot about where political division in this country is coming from. We'll be right back. The smartest, most interesting people we've ever interviewed. He spent time in prison as a young man in Egypt for being an Islamic extremist, which he was. Then years later, the Southern Poverty Law Center put him on a list of anti-Muslim extremists. In response, he sued the Southern Poverty Law Center successfully for defamation. The point is, he knows a lot about extremism. We talked to him recently on an episode of Tucker Carlson Today about why there's so much more in this country, and his answer, and he would know, is because our ruling class is funding it. Here's part of the conversation.
We have to understand the way our politics works to understand what's happened here with the left. Yeah. So if you understand that above politics sits finance, and above finance sits ideas.
Yes.
Because it's not enough just being rich; you have to know what to do with it, right? So on that 2 stages above, ideas stage, if you're so wealthy and you have ideas about the future that aren't left-right ideas, they're civilizational ideas, yeah? They're ideas about the direction that you want to take your civilization towards. Left and right disputes, once you're there, 2 stages above that, are simply tools for your direction of travel.
Exactly.
So you can take your finance with your ideas, your civilizational ideas about the direction of travel, and you can either send it rightwards or leftwards, depending on what you want to achieve.
He's an amazing person, and that interview is well worth it. Tomorrow we have an interview planned with an online celebrity called Ollie London. He transitioned from a man, lived as a woman, even changed his ethnicity. Now he's become a man again and learned a lot in the process. Tells you a lot. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. and we can't wait to see you then. Have the best night with the ones you love. Here's Sean Hannity.
All right, and Tucker,